This is Linda Lysakowski, and today's guest, I think you're going to find a really fascinating person. I know you will because I do. It's Father Max Oliva, and he's a Jesuit priest, but I'm going to let him talk about his background and then about his great book that he just published. So, Father Max, why don't you just introduce yourself to the people and tell us a little bit about your background, which I think is a little unusual. I talked to several priests, and they say they got their calling when they were 9 years old and 10 years old and 14 years old. Tell us about you and how you first had the calling to the priesthood.
Okay, well, thank you. And my background is, as you say, a bit different. So I went to Loyola High School in Los Angeles. That was a Jesuit high school. Uh, I went to Santa Clara University, a Jesuit university. Um, but I always understood priesthood as the diocesan priests in parishes. So, but I hadn't thought about being a priest until I was 24 years old. And I happened to be in my office. I was a salesman for a food cannery in San Jose, California. And had just hung up the phone talking to one of my customers, and this idea popped into my head. I think I want to be a priest. Well, this was completely out of character to who I was because I had traveled a lot in Europe after college. I had a sports car at the time. I was dating a woman who would have we would have eventually gotten married had I not gone in this other direction. Um, and and I was fine with my life, except that I knew that there was something missing. I didn't know what was missing, but something was missing. Um, and so when I eventually ended up in the Jesuits, but it was only about a month between the time I thought about this and went into the novitiate, which is the first 2 years of the Jesuit formation. I wasn't sure what this was all about. But when I got into the novitiate and looked back, I could see that God was leading me gradually towards this decision. The first thing that happened was I was living in Los Gatos, which is a town in the Santa Clara Valley, with two other guys up in the hills. And um, after a year of living together, they both moved on, and I moved to a smaller house on the same property where we were. And while I was moving my boxes, I found a copy of Thomas à Kempis' Imitation of Christ, which somebody had given to me for my graduation from college, but I hadn't opened it. And so for some reason, this is the Holy Spirit, for some reason, I decided to take a look at it, and I started to read it. Meantime, I was commuting in my sports car to work with about a half an hour drive each day. And one day while at work, this would have been the summer of 1961, I was thinking about my life and what have you, and it occurred to me that I should go to confession. Okay, so I stopped at the parish on my way home from work, St. Mary's Parish in Los Gatos, and since it was after office hours, I went to the priest's house, and the pastor said, "Sure, I'll hear your confession. Let's go over to the church." We did, heard my confession, gave me a penance I could do right there. And so I sat in the pew, the only person in the church. And what caught my attention was not the tabernacle, it was the wall, the color of the wall behind the tabernacle. It was a very peaceful blue. And as I sat there looking at the wall doing my penance, this peace came over me. Now, as Jesuit, we know that's consolation, but I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that there was this wonderful, warm feeling. So I decided uh, that I would stop at the church a couple of times a week for the next couple of weeks. And every time I did, I simply sat in the pew and looked at the blue wall. And every time I did that, this same feeling came over. So then I decided, well, um, okay. Uh, so then I had a really good friend, Father Lou Bannon, who was one of my good friends from Santa Clara University. I took him out to dinner at the time because I said to him, uh, Father Lou, I think I may have a vocation to the Jesuits, but it's very unclear to me uh, why this is coming to me because I'm not unhappy, um, but I do know that there's something missing. So he suggested I make a weekend retreat at our retreat house about 20 minutes away from where Santa Clara in Los Altos. And on that retreat, I decided to join the Jesuits. Um, I was 24 years old. I My class there were 40 of us in the class. There were only three of us who had college degrees. The rest of them were all right out of high school. So it was a bit of a culture shock. And it was during I was in the Jesuits about a month, and then we went into what's called the 30-day retreat and Ignatian spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius. And while on the retreat, in the beginning of the retreat, something happened that made me just without doubt know that this is where I'm supposed to be. And that has never left me. And that's 1961. So so then uh, so then I thought to myself, well, how did this happen? Well, in the novitiate, there was this little booklet called The Hound of Heaven
Oh, yeah.
by Francis Thompson. And here's how it starts. I fled him down the nights and down the days. I fled him being God, down the arches of the years. I fled him down the labyrinth ways of my own mind. And in the mist of tears, I hid from him. And under running laughter, up visted hopes I sped, and shot precipitated. But with unhurrying chase and unperturbed pace, deliberate speed, majestic instancy, they beat, and a voice beat, more instant than the feet. Okay, so this is the Hound of Heaven. The Hound of Heaven is God chasing us until he catches us. And that is my story about how I ended up in the Jesuits.
Well, that's quite interesting. One of the things that I think as you were talking, I thought instantly of your book, My Life is a Miracle. And I think I have an idea why you titled it that way, but I have to tell you something before you talk about this book is one thing I love to read. I have three bookshelves in my little office here, but I never read memoirs. I just think who wants to read about somebody else's life? It's probably boring as all heck. But yours is the first memoir I think I've actually read cover to cover. so
Oh,
so it must be really good for me to read it because I don't often read memoirs. But tell me why you called it My Life is a Miracle.
Uh, the main reason is that academically, uh, I had done not not really well in school. I never did well in anything to do with math or arithmetic or geometry or okay with algebra, but the rest of it was not good. My mind doesn't work that way. Um, and so I didn't have a lot of confidence in my academic abilities. Um, I had a B average in college, and but I get in the Jesuits, and Jesuits are known for education. I had wonderful mentors, older Jesuits, who saw talents and gifts in me that I didn't know were there, and encouraged them and nurtured them, and I started to blossom in academics. So much so that by the time I got to theology studies, uh, which in 1969, I had applied to get an MBA at the University of California at Berkeley while getting my Master's of Divinity at the Graduate Theological Union, also in Berkeley. So um, I started I started the MBA in the summer of '69, and then started the MDiv, Master of Divinity, in the fall. Um, the amazing thing to me was that in uh, both the MBA and the MDiv, as we called it, uh, I had a 3.8 on a 4 point. So this is this
See,
is just this is just completely different than the person I was before I went in the Jesuits. That to me is a miracle. I mean, it's the fact is I didn't know well, I was told along the way, one of the priests said, you're going to do well in the area of spirituality. And in fact, I have done well in that area. I've written books, I've written articles, um, I've taught in various places. Um, it's just like night and day between who I was before and who I became.
that's amazing. I think, and who you became was only the beginning of it. It's all the adventures that you had in your book. I was just incredibly amazed by the work that you've done. So tell us a little bit about your groundbreaking adventures, really, in your years of priesthood. I know you've worked with some very interesting communities and vocations. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, well, it's interesting that the adventures, as I look at them, my adventures as a Jesuit started actually before I was ordained. We have in our formation, the first 2 years is novitiate, then you do a year studying Latin and Greek, then you do philosophy studies for a couple of years, and then you do something practical for 2 or 3 years. Then you go to theology. So that's why our training is longer than the diocesan training.
Mm.
Um, so I was up in Spokane for the philosophy part of this. So the first 2 years I was in Los Gatos and Santa Barbara because we had two novitiates at the time. Then I went to Spokane to study philosophy. And while in Spokane, um, I read a book called The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin, which is about the African American or Black experience in the United States. This was during the Civil Rights time.
Mm.
Um, and I was fascinated by what he wrote and how he uh, described the experience of Black people in the United States. Since I'd had philosophy in college, I didn't have to stay for 2 years in philosophy studies. So they moved me to San Francisco in the middle of the second year of philosophy and to teach at our high school in San Ignatius High School in San Francisco, which at the time was at the University of San Francisco campus, or right near it. When I arrived there, I was to teach sophomore religion. Um, and at the same time, I picked up another book called Native Son by Richard Wright, also on the Black experience in the US. And again, I was really fascinated with this. And so this idea started swimming around in my head. And this is how God works with me. He gives me an idea. And then I have to find people to talk to about it to see where is this coming from? Is this coming from me? Is it coming from God? course, that's coming from the bad spirit. Um, and so I had a real good friend, Mary Spone, who was the mother of a Jesuit friend of mine, and a priest at US University of San Francisco. And I talked to them about this idea I had of leaving the high school and working in the Black community in San Francisco, which was known as the Filmore district. Now, nobody in the history memory of our province, at the time, the California province, had never not taught in one of our schools, either high school or university, during this time we call Regency, between philosophy and theology. I was asking, not only was I asking to stop teaching, but also to move to the Black community and live in a diocesan parish. This was unheard of. But I was strong, and both Mary and the priest said, "We think you should follow this." Meantime, another Jesuit who was worked for our General Superior in Rome was visiting the United States and came to visit us. And I went to see him, Father Harold Small, and ask him what he thought about this idea. And he said the general, who at the time was Father Arupe, is coming out with a letter on the interracial apostolate in the United States. I think you should follow this. So I have a fear of rejection, and the rejection might come from my superior at the where I was living in San Francisco, who was Mr. High School, and also as it turned out, and eventually a very good friend. But at the time, he was a formidable person, and so in order to have the courage to approach him, I went over to the parish and I went to the Stations of the Cross, and I went to the second station where Jesus takes the cross, and I asked for the grace to take the cross of that I was facing, which was the fear of rejection, and in order to pursue this, and got the grace, went home, sat down with Father Harry Carlin, who was the superior, explained to him what I felt I was being called to do. He was ringing. He just couldn't get over it. He said, "I don't know what to do with you. You got to go see the provincial." So I went to see the provincial and said the same thing to him, and he said, "All right," he said, "I don't understand what's going on here either, but it sounds like something's going on for you. So I want you to go and visit with another Jesuit who was working in the Hispanic community in San Francisco and other parts of our province. Our province at the time was California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and Hawaii. And his name was Father Jim Vazard. And he said, yeah, he said, it sounds good to me. You go and move to Sacred Heart Parish, San Francisco. And that's what I did then for the next 2 years. I set up a program of getting job interviews for Black men that I was meeting on the street and in the pool halls and every other place and then I also connected with union leaders and some people in the business corporations to get job interviews and then that led eventually to getting the MBA. So this entrepreneurship started then in that even before our nation.
And then I believe you've worked also in Mexico, am I correct?
Yes. So after so because of what I had done in the Black community, new provincial Dick Vaughn comes in and says to me about a month before I was being ordained in 1972, "I'm appointing you assistant to me for what we call social ministries, which is helping Jesuits see the integration of our spirituality with issues of social justice." Now, this is not a popular topic in the early 70s among Jesuits. And so my job from Father Vaughn was to go out and to give talks in our universities and high schools to the Jesuits who were much older than I was, much more educated than I was, a lot more experience than I had. Um, but but listen to what I had to say, and many of them did exactly that. They integrated issues of justice into whatever they were doing, teaching or working in parish ministry or whatever. Um, I'm very organized. So after doing this for about 4 years, during which time I also got involved with the farm workers in Central California, promoting uh, rights for farm workers. Um, the a friend of mine from Chicago, another Jesuit, asked me if I'd like to come to Berkeley to help him with a program and what's called field education. And my job was to run these theological reflection groups, which was to help the students find the connection between what they were doing in class with what they were doing practically speaking. And did that for both jobs and ended up being 6 years. And eventually, one summer, I had some free time, so our novices have been going to a place in Tijuana, Mexico called Casa de los Pobres. So I decided to go down there for a couple of months during the summer. Again, I don't, I mean, I'm looking back and seeing, oh yeah, how that one thing led to another. So I moved down to San Diego and from Berkeley, and in order to work part-time across the border in Mexico. Um, Meantime, I was also starting to give parish retreats in the San Diego diocese. And one of the first actual retreat I gave in the parish, um, the pastor and I went out to dinner on, I was I was preaching at all the masses on the weekend, plus 4 days, 4 evenings, talks. And so I gave my homily on Saturday afternoon mass, and then he and I went out to dinner. And at dinner, I asked him for a critique of my homily, and he said, "Well, theologically, it was great, but you got to bring in something personal, or you'll lose them." That started that is a significant um, insight for me because ever since then I always bring in either something from my life or something from somebody else's life in order for people in the pew to connect to their life. And I've been told over the years that yeah, that really works. Uh, so I initially was helping at Casa de los Pobres. I met a woman there who asked me if I would come over to her colonia or district in Tijuana because they had no priest. So I have this missionary mentality. And so I said, yeah, I'll go. So we took two buses to get there, but eventually we got there and I met this Dominican sister, Jean McAnally, who was also an entrepreneur. She had also met somebody who from this colonia. And so she was getting land for a small church and a clinic, and she was amazing. And so I started saying mass out there, actually in the backyard of one of the homes.
My gosh.
And and then going back and forth across the border, which is an interesting experience driving in
Right.
Tijuana. It's like driving in Europe.
Oh
Uh,
no.
those are roundabouts. You never know if you're going to get
Oh,
out of the roundabout.
oh, those are crazy.
Yeah. But the people then in Colonia, the Colonia is called Esperanza, which means hope.
Oh,
And
Right.
we got this little church built, and we called it Nuestra Señora de la Esperanza, which is Our Lady of Hope. And I worked there part-time for 12 years.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So you have really had an interesting background, and I was getting I was getting lost in the Europe and every place else that you've been in your book. It was like, wow, you've really traveled all over. So what's your focus now? I'm assuming you're a little less travel like right now, right?
Well, yeah, let's see. Uh, well, to get to now, I have to take it back uh, to 1993 when I did a 3 month sabbatical in the Holy Land, in Jerusalem,
Oh wow.
and all over, up to the Lake of Galilee and everything.
Mm.
And on that uh, sabbatical, there was a priest from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and a sister from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And we were talking about what we did back home. And um, Father Bill had been pastor at the cathedral in Calgary and was getting changed to a parish. And Sister Germaine was in formation work up in Edmonton. Um, and I explained that what I did was give retreats and parish missions and so forth. And they said, well, come to Alberta and we'll get you all kinds of possibilities. Well, that led to me actually moving eventually up to Alberta, where I lived for uh, 9 years, uh, completely different climate than I was used to, as you know, minus 20 and 30 in the winter.
Oh,
Um, but then eventually, that after 9 years, that uh, started to diminish. And meantime, my provincial in California had sent a letter out to all of us looking for volunteers to start something in Las Vegas.
which is where I
So
met
I
you.
volunteered.
We both live there.
Yes, I volunteered, and we both know Father Ron Zanoni, because I had met Ron, and he invited me to live at St. Christopher Parish in northeast Las Vegas in the Valley. Um, at, I lived there, and uh, I helped out a little bit in the parish, but my main ministry, which I had started actually in Calgary, was with business people and lawyers on spirituality and ethics. And
That's fascinating because I think it's so much needed in this world today.
definitely, yeah. And along the way, by the way, along the way, every time I was in a place, I wrote another book.
Which one did you write in Las Vegas?
I wrote a book on the Ten Commandments,
Oh, well, God, I'll have to get a hold of that one.
and also on mercy,
Oh,
becoming a
good.
person of mercy.
Oh, that's great. I'll have to get a hold of that. I, to
They're
add
on
to
Ama
my,
they're on
maybe
Amazon.
I may need to buy a new bookshelf, but I'll get a hold of them on Amazon.
Yeah.
Uh,
So then after living in Las Vegas for 6 years, um, uh, I had to move because the Father Ron had been moved, and he ended up going to a place that there was no room for me to join him. So I stayed at St. Christopher. But then in the sixth year, a fellow was appointed, and we didn't see eye to eye, so I needed to move. And I didn't want to live in an apartment or a condo in Vegas because it's not safe, morally speaking. So then what happened was it opened up up in Spokane, Washington. Um, I asked if I might be interested in moving up there and living at Gonzaga University and with the Jesuits there. So I moved up, but with the understanding that I would continue to work part-time in Las Vegas. So the first 2 years I was up there, I went to Vegas every month for a week, and then continuing the ministry to business people and lawyers that I had started, and then being in then after the first 2 years, then I started going every other month. COVID came, couldn't go at all. Then I went back to every other month, which I'm still doing. So right now I am living in Spokane. I have ministries here because I only go to Vegas every other month, so got to do something in between. So I help out in a couple of parishes, St. Anne's and Our Lady of the Lake, and uh, and I continue to work in Las Vegas. So in fact, just today I sent a note to a group of people we meet when I'm in town for on a sharing on a topic related to ethics and business. They're all lawyers and business people, um, and that so I'm continuing to do what I'm doing in Spokane, and finishing. I wrote the memoir, which finished in February, and I'm making that available to friends and family. And
So, is there another book in the future here coming up?
well, it's interesting. I was talking to this publisher in Eugene, Oregon, Whitf and Stock, really good people, about the possibility of publishing the My Life as a Miracle, because I self-published it, and so you can only get it from me. But I said to the fellow, I said, I have this idea of another book, but I want to run it by you, see what you think. So I have before the the memoir, I had 7 books published.
Hmm.
So what I'm thinking of doing is taking a chapter from each of the 7 books and putting them into one book.
Oh, that
And
would
he
be,
thought that was a great idea.
yeah.
So that's my next project.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad somebody else always says. I had one book in my mind until I went to Las Vegas for 2 weeks, and now I came back with another idea. So now I have 2 outlines of books that I did while I was there.
Sure.
I went on a Franciscan retreat a few weeks ago and got inspired to write a book there because I asked the brother who was giving the retreat, I said, have you ever written a book? Because the talk that you just gave needs to be a book. And he said, oh, I can't write. So I said, well, then I'm going to write it. So he sent me all his notes. So next week,
Oh,
maybe I'll get started to write that. But
well, you did a nice job with Father Ron Zanoni's book.
oh yeah, he's a great guy. I was wondering if the two of you, when you met each other, did you find that you had any relatives back in Italy that might be known each other? Because his family's from northern Italy, and I believe yours is too. I don't know how
Yeah,
close.
we're originally from Genoa, the region of Genoa.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure where he is. He
I
from
I can't
Florence,
remember.
maybe?
I no, it was a small town that he mentioned, and I can't
Uh,
remember it. But we'll have to compare notes on that one
but
time.
he and I are really good friends. I see him when I'm there. I'm going down the first week of July, and I'm one of the evenings is with him. Uh,
Oh,
at
good.
the There's a very good restaurant in Las Vegas called the Italian American Club.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to go there.
Sounds good. Sounds like a great idea. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, I know you've worked as a spiritual director, and I'm wondering how important it is for people, just ordinary average people, to have a spiritual director, because sometimes they think, oh, that's for people who are super religious, or it's for nuns or priests or something. But what's your thought on having a spiritual director?
Well, this takes me back to my mother. Uh, my mother, turns out, was a very spiritual woman. When I was in high school, I didn't know this at the time, but when I was in high school, she had a spiritual director.
Oh, hmm.
She was married, my dad, and she had 5 kids. But she went to see a priest, a Jesuit who was working at Loyola High School where I was going to school. Um, and I think it was she at the age of 44 discovered that she had cancer,
Hmm.
and uh, and it probably was going to not end well. Uh, and in the second year of her disease, he recommended to her a book called Abandonment to Divine Providence, um, a book which I read later when I entered the Jesuits. And because she knew that she was going to be leaving 5 children. Well, I was in college by then, but the rest of them were still at home. Um, so uh, in the Jesuits, you get a spiritual director right from the get-go. Um, and I had a marvelous guy who really helped me a lot. Um, the one of the themes of the spiritual exercise of Saint Ignatius is finding God in all things. So not just finding God at the Eucharist or however you pray, but in everything you do, where you work, where you play, how you socialize, your interpersonal relationships, family connections, and so forth. And so um, lay people are attracted to our spirituality, I think for that very reason, that when we do spiritual direction, when I do spiritual, if somebody comes to me and says, I would like to see you for spiritual direction, I say, well, I have to tell you right away, I'm interested in your whole life, not just whether you're going to mass or not.
Right.
Uh,
That's important. I think that's a really great point that you made, finding God everywhere, because God is everywhere.
yeah. And so uh, now I've over the years have had um Jesuits as spiritual directors, but I've also had lay people. In fact, when I was in Canada, I had a woman who was a doctor,
Hmm.
married to a guy who I knew through my business ministry. Uh, for the last 6 years, I've had a married woman as my director who has done a lot of spiritual direction over the years. Um, I like having a woman director every once in a while because of the integration between the feminine and the masculine. And and anyway, Suzanne is very intuitive and terrific director. Um, the It's interesting that as I've gone through my life as a Jesuit, I've noticed more and more lay people wanting to have somebody like, to talk to about their spiritual life in terms of the whole faith experience. Um, it's the trick is finding somebody that you feel comfortable with and they feel comfortable with you. One way to do this is to make a retreat, like a weekend retreat, or some people make longer retreat, 6 days. And in that period, you kind of get a sense for what you're looking for and who you might get for a spiritual director. Um, I find it indispensable. I just need somebody to bounce stuff off of. I'm an extrovert, so I process by talking out things, whereas introverts are,
Right.
like camels in water. They just
Yeah. We were
don't
just
need it.
talking about the Myers-Briggs and with a
Mm.
group of people, and I'm an ENTJ myself, so I'm
Ah,
very similar to you. I have to talk things through with someone, and I don't have a formal spiritual director, but I have someone that kind of serves as that somebody I can talk to about anything and everything.
Sure. And our friend Amy,
Yeah.
I'm hers.
Good, yeah. Well, one of the things before we close, I know I'm taking a lot of your time, but in your book, one of the people that you quoted in your book was Thomas Merton, and he's always been one of my favorites since probably the 1970s when I started reading his work. So, has he influenced your work and your life at all?
Very much so. Back probably, trying to think of when I started reading him, probably in um, also probably in the 1970s. One of the Jesuits who taught at the Jesuit School of Theology in Berkeley, Dan O'Hanlon, was very familiar with Thomas Merton's works. And I had found this book called New Seeds of Contemplation that Merton wrote. And uh, I asked Dan, I said, he's a Trappist monk. He said, yeah. He said, so read his stuff, which is great. Take what is appropriate for you and your spirituality and leave the rest and don't feel guilty about it
Oh, well, that's a
while
good
leaving the
advice.
rest. Uh, the thing that really caught me with him was his idea of the true self and the false self, which goes really to Paul's letter to the Ephesians.
Mhm.
And Merton's idea was that our life is a continual dying to the old false self and rising to the new true self. And then you ask, well, what does that all mean? Well, the true self is that part of your psyche that really believes in God's unconditional love for you personally. And therefore you want to do what God wants and as a way of loving him back. The false self is the self that says, I want nothing to do with you, God. I'm
Mm.
going my own way.
Mm.
Um, so it's helpful. The spiritual director can help you see which way you're being led.
Mm.
There's a quote from Merton that I like very much. It's from the New Seeds of Contemplation. He says, "To say that I am made in the image of God is to say that love is the reason for my existence, for God is love. Love is my true identity. Love is my true character. Love is my name."
Wow, that's so powerful. And and I think you've certainly lived that out in your life. I guess one final question that I really want to ask you is what's next in your life?
Well, the idea of doing this, so I'm turning 87 in July.
Oh, I'm only going to be 84. I'm a youngster.
You're just a kid. Uh, I am in the book in the memoir. While putting it together, I found this thing called superagers. That's people who are 80 and over who still are functioning well and who are thinking well and have a social life and have a good spiritual life and are have their wits about them.
I love
Uh,
that. Super agers, huh? I'll have to
so
check into that a little
I'm
more.
in that category.
I think
But
I am too. I hope
I'd say you are definitely. Uh, so I just try to stay open to what I call the voice, because over the years, every once in a while, the voice speaks to me and I end up going in another direction. But I think at this time of my life, I'm probably not going to go into any major decision. Eventually, I'll retire at our retirement center in California, but right now, my health is good. I've got a lot of energy.
good.
I've got ideas of what I want to do with like another book. Um, and so I'm just trying to stay open to the spirit and follow Jesus however he wants me to go.
That's great. You got to do that. You're in the Society of Jesus, huh?
That's right.
One question I do want to ask. I know you said this book, My Life is a Miracle, is not on Amazon, but the other books that you have, can they be bought on Amazon? Can
Yes, yes. There,
you
and
tell us
also I have,
titles?
sure, I have a website too.
Oh, okay.
The website is Ethics in the Marketplace.
Okay, well, we'll give everyone that website and tell me
And
the name of your other books so we can.
so the first one was Praying the Beatitudes.
Okay.
And then the next one was Free to Pray, Free to Love, Growing in Prayer and Compassion.
Okay.
The next one is The Masculine Spirit, Helping Men to Be More Reflective.
And is there more?
Then there's God of Many Loves, which is about various ways in which God loves us.
Oh, that's
He's
great.
merciful, abundant, you know, freeing, so forth. Uh, then the next one was Beatitudes for the Workplace, which is for business people and lawyers mainly on ethics in the workplace. I took the format of the Beatitudes, blessed are those, and then I wrote my own Beatitudes according to various virtues.
Oh, well, those sound great.
All my books have personal stories in them.
Oh,
So each book I ask people to help me by giving me their stories, and so the stories
oh,
sometimes they said fine, you can use my name. Other times don't use my name, but you can use the
right.
story or my own story. So you get a lot of stories in the books.
Oh, that's great.
Then let's see, the publisher of the Beatitudes for the Workplace asked me if I could do a book on the Ten Commandments. So that's the Ten Commandments for everyday life. And then the same publisher asked if I could do a book on mercy. It was the Jubilee Year of Mercy that
Mm,
Pope Francis uh, had. And that one is called Becoming a Person of Mercy.
okay. Well, we're going to make sure we get the links to your books, and when we publish this podcast, people will see the links and they can go on and buy any one of them. And I want to thank you for your time. This has been really great. Maybe you and I can stay on to chat a little bit. I want to make sure I have all the titles of the books right. So,
Sure.
okay. Well, thank you so much for being a guest. You've been fascinating, and I think so many people, especially the area of ethics in the workplace, is so necessary these days. So I think people can really learn a lot from all of your books. And I know I'm going to pick up. I want to pick them all up, but I'll be 87 until I read them. That's okay.
Right.
Well, thanks so much. Do you have any final words that you want to leave us with?
Well, no, thank you for inviting me to do this. And I just thank God for his patience with me in getting me finally into the Jesuits, and for all the ways in which God has been, through the Trinity, has been a part of my life, and all the people I have met over the years that have influenced me and helped me to be a better person.
Okay. Well, thanks so much again, Father. We really appreciate it. We'll make sure everybody gets the list of your books.